Let us pray. Lord, have mercy upon us. Lord, have mercy upon us. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Amen. Morning, members. The House is now in session. Good morning. Members, the minutes from the 14th of July have been circulated. Are there any amendments, adjustments required? There are none. The minutes will be printed as confirmed. Messengers from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker. The following members have indicated they'll be absent today. Minister Tanae Furbert, Minister Kim Wilson, and MP Anthony Richardson. I also like to announce the delegation attending the 45th CPA Regional Conference and the 13th Commonwealth Women's Parliament Conference in Turks and Caicos. The Bermuda delegation consists of MP Susan Jackson, MP Levita Figo, Senator Ariana Hudson, and Assistant Clerk, Designated Deputy Clerk, Mrs. Beal. MP Jackson has already departed, will be departing today and is absent. The others will be departing over the weekend. Also, members, I'd like to make mention of the 190th anniversary of the passage of the Emancipation Bill in the British House of Parliament. And I make mention of it because tomorrow is that anniversary. July 22nd marks the 190th anniversary of the passage of the Emancipation Bill in the British House of Commons, which was the result of many decades of grassroots movements for the abolishment of slavery. Everything from the outright rebellion to parliamentary lobbying. The bill received royal assent on the 28th of August, 1833, and came into effect on the 1st of August, 1834. And as part of that, I think it's significant to note that a pivotal part of that breakthrough was the success of the Haitian people in defeating Napoleon's troops, which brought about the ending of slavery in the country and the abolition of the slave trade in the region. Also, the organizers would like to remind and invite us and the public that on August 1st, in celebration, there'll be a gathering on the grounds of City Hall between 12:45 and 1:15, and all are invited to attend this in recognition of the anniversary of emancipation. Those are my announcements for this morning. The next matter is the messages from the Senate. There are none. Papers and other communications. There are 2 papers this morning. The first is in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Actually, both in his name. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Financial Assistance Amendment Regulations 2023 as made by the Minister responsible for financial assistance in exercise of the power conferred by Section 21 of the Financial Assistance Act 2001.
Thank you, Minister. Would you like to present the second?
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Child Daycare Allowance Amendment Regulations 2023 as made by the Minister responsible for financial assistance in exercise of the power conferred by Section 17 of the Child Daycare Allowance Act 2008.
Thank you, Minister. Petitions, there are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. We have 8 statements this morning. The first is in the name of the Premier. Premier, would you like to present your statement?
Certainly. Good morning to you, Mr.
Good morning.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to provide an update on the Government Reform Initiative. In the government's 2017 platform, we committed to reforming the public service, and as we have shown time and time again, this government follows through on its commitments to the electorate. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall learning about the strategic planning framework for government reform, which was tabled in this honorable House on the 1st of March, 2019. This framework was produced in consultation with PricewaterhouseCoopers and set out a starting point for the building of a comprehensive roadmap to achieving government reform between 2019 and 2023. Mr. Speaker, the framework comprised 6 strategic areas: strategy, processes, platform, people, perspective, and performance. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will also recall the government established the priorities would focus on the people and information technology work streams. Workshops and training sessions align departmental mission objectives with a vision for a future-forward government for the people of Bermuda. Budget structures were redefined to enable zero-based budgeting and a public value assessment for decision-making on service delivery. Mr. Speaker, there were 6 people objectives, and by people, I'm referring to the government of Bermuda employees. These included 100% of public officers having completed annual performance appraisals, additional performance-based pay and recognition is provided to the top 20% of performers, 50% of all public officers participate in the government wellness program, implementing a centralized training platform accessible by all public officers, consistent succession plan created and approved for all permanent secretaries, and 60% of the roles in the public service having documented detailed job descriptions. Mr. Speaker, all 6 of the people objectives have been advanced with foundational policies and programs successfully implemented towards achieving the reform initiatives. Mr. Speaker, the government has introduced a successful leadership program. 34 graduates completed the program as part of the pilot cohort, and the public service is now preparing for a second cohort. A succession planning policy was completed for all public service roles, and additionally, all critical and hard-to-fill posts across the public service were identified to enable the implementation of a system-wide succession plan. Mr. Speaker, the government and honorable members know that our public officers work tirelessly to serve the people of Bermuda, and we must encourage that their hard work is acknowledged. Therefore, to recognize and encourage continued excellence in service delivery, we introduced the Public Service Excellence Awards program, which highlights public officers' outstanding work and contributions of public officers each month. I'm proud to personally participate in the awards ceremony each month at the Cabinet Office, where I meet with the recipient and the head of the public service to commend them on their outstanding work. And Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that the age-old bonus program that awards up to $1,000 per year to technical officers for outstanding performance has been expanded and can now be used to recognize exceptional performance across all segments of the public service. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we created an online appraisal process and provided an inventory of learning and development programs accessible to all public officers. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the people focus and the wellness initiative, continue to deliver programs in health and well-being to officers. To date, there have been over 13 initiatives and close to 1,500 public officers participating in group challenges to encourage healthy lifestyles. Mr. Speaker, each of the policies and programs that have been advanced or implemented represent a necessary foundational building block towards government reform and a more efficient and effective public service. Mr. Speaker, there were 8 information technology objectives. The public health crisis that we experienced in 2020 proves to be a significant disruptor in this area. And while paperless 2023 was an original core objective, planned resources were required to be redirected to support the needs of providing contactless services to the community. More than 80 digital forms and applications have been released to the public since 2019. Mr. Speaker, with the exception of COVID-specific forms and apps, most of the 80 remain a core part of the current delivery model, with new web-based applications and forms coming online to support operations. Meanwhile, a digital strategy was completed and work is currently advancing on the delivery of a unified payment gateway for the government to support end-to-end online payments and reconciliation for all government departments. Mr. Speaker, in our ongoing effort to improve the service we deliver to the people of Bermuda, a service standards policy has been completed. The government has now commenced the rollout of customer service training, which is aligned with this policy. Therefore, not only have public officers been informed of the standards we seek to achieve, but we've now commenced the work to train all public officers on the standards we expect, supporting them in their role while also providing benefits to the people we serve through improved customer service. Mr. Speaker, to prepare the government to take a strategic look at its services very early in the rollout of the government reform initiative, a series of workshops and training sessions with permanent secretaries and heads of departments provided for all departments' mission statements to be aligned with the vision for a future forward government for the people of Bermuda. The aligned mission statements have been reflected in the business plans and approved estimates of revenue and expenditure publication for several budget cycles. Mr. Speaker, further training in subsequent budget cycles resulted in the redefining of the approach to budget development to achieve service-specific budget structures to align with the requirements of the zero-based budgeting and to provide for the introduction of a public value assessment to determine the relative value of all services provided by the government. This data is now available internally for decision-making relative to the future delivery of government services. Mr. Speaker, work on the outstanding initiatives will continue throughout the end of the year. Simultaneously, a team has been assembled and assessments have been undertaken to review the lessons learned in advance of the development of the Government Reform Plan 2024 to 2027. Mr. Speaker, having used the last few years to develop and implement the necessary foundational policies and programs, the 2024 plan is intended to build on the foundation by better advancing digital initiatives and focus on the specific needs of high-touch departments to increase efficiency in service delivery. Mr. Speaker, also in addition to the strategic objectives outlined in the strategy planning framework, the 2024 plan highlights lessons learned and identifies areas for improvement in resource planning, staff involvement, culture change, and performance management. Mr. Speaker, technology is expected to drive change in the future, and about 20 customer-facing departments will be prioritized and are expected to be among the early cohort to deliver end-to-end digital services. Mr. Speaker, to support these endeavors, a well-trained and talented workforce will be required, and both existing employees and new recruits to fill critical roles will drive the process. While the government of Bermuda endeavors to be the employer of choice, attracting talent can sometimes be challenging. Recent market research conducted as part of the Bermuda Omnibus Survey has provided statistically relevant data to help focus communications, address perceptions, and better understand the various target groups so that we can attract the best talent in the future. Mr. Speaker, in closing, what I've outlined to this Honorable House is further confirmation that this government is committed to, the reform that this government is committed to is well underway. Not only is this yielding benefits for the people of Bermuda through more efficient and effective services, but also to our public officers by providing an improved working structure, fair rewards, and initiatives that recognize their valued contributions. The government will continue to advance these vital reforms and deliver on creating a more efficient public service for the people of Bermuda. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to thank Dr. Derek Binns, head of the Public Service, who has been leading this reform and who is today serving his last day as a public officer. He is retiring after 37 years of service in which he's held roles including permanent secretary and cabinet secretary. On behalf of the government. I thank Dr. Binns for his leadership, his devoted work, and the decades that he's given to the public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Tourism and Cabinet Office. Mr. Campbell,
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to provide this honorable House with an update on the Ministry of Tourism and the Cabinet Office's efforts to engage our industry stakeholders on the recently amended Tourism and Investment Act 2017. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, we debated significant amendments to this very important piece of legislation, which is aimed at supporting hotels, restaurants, and local entrepreneurs in the tourism space. Mr. Speaker, the primary objective of the Tourism Investment Act 2017 is to make Bermuda more attractive to investors and to incentivize and assist businesses to reinvest in their product by providing a level of tax relief for the following tourism products: new or existing restaurants, visitor attractions, a new hotel, or a refurbished hotel. More specifically, Mr. Speaker, tourism attractions and restaurants are major contributors to the local economy. They create employment opportunities, generate revenue, and stimulate business activities. Visitors often allocate a significant portion of their travel budget to dining and entertainment, making restaurants and attractions key drivers of tourism spending. The revenue generated by these establishments, Mr. Speaker, supports other sectors of the local economy, such as transportation and retail, further amplifying their impact. So, Mr. Speaker, since the debate, I have made it my mission to reach out to businesses in this space to share with them just how important this piece of legislation is to their operations and to their success. It might surprise the honorable members of this House to learn that there's limited awareness among our local entrepreneurs about the benefits of this act. And so our direct engagement is a critical component to ensuring that restaurants and visitor attractions take full advantage of the incentives and relief that's available to them. Most recently, Mr. Speaker, I had a discussion with the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, a key industry partner, to highlight the incentives. During our conversation on the Mind Your Business podcast, I stressed the importance of upgrading and enhancing the visitor product offerings and taking advantage of the tax relief and customs duty relief that's available to restaurants, attractions, and hotels. Mr. Speaker, for restaurants, I explained that the Tourism Investment Act 2017 makes a conducive environment for growth and development. It offers relief measures and incentives to attract investment in new or existing restaurants, encouraging entrepreneurs to establish high-quality dining establishments. These incentives may include tax relief and duty concessions on imports of equipment and supplies, all of which can significantly reduce operational costs for restaurant owners. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, our visitor attractions can also reap the advantages of the Tourism Investment Act. It encourages investment in the development and enhancement of tourism attractions such as museums, cultural sites, and landmarks. The act facilitates the expansion and diversification of attractions, making Bermuda a more appealing destination for tourists. Mr. Speaker, with increased investment, attractions can improve their infrastructure, upgrade facilities, and introduce new experiences. This can lead to a wider array of entertainment options, immersive attractions, and interactive exhibits, ultimately enhancing the overall visitor experience. Mr. Speaker, next month, we have scheduled stakeholder engagements with the Bermuda Tourism Authority and another BEDC meeting planned for businesses and local entrepreneurs in the East End. We have also connected with the Bermuda Chamber of Commerce with the intent of directly engaging with their restaurant and tourism divisions to share the benefits of the Tourism Investment Act 2017. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we are sharing our Tourism Investment Act 2017 promotional and awareness information via our online, digital, and traditional media communication channels. Mr. Speaker, our message is simple. Bermuda's tourism industry is vital to our economic success, and if we are to remain competitive with other visitor destinations, we must invest in and enhance our product offerings. The Tourism Investment Act 2017 is a catalyst for growth in the restaurant and attraction sectors by creating a favorable investment climate. It incentivizes entrepreneurs to establish and expand their businesses, promotes collaboration between the public and private sectors, and enhances the overall tourism experience in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, this government understands and appreciates that it can sometimes be difficult owning and operating a business in the tourism space. But we are putting things in place to help, like the Tourism Investment Act 2017. Mr. Speaker, we are determined to support our local businesses and entrepreneurs and make them more aware of what's available to them in this current climate. We will continue to have direct discussions with the key stakeholders in this space so that they know what steps they can take to ensure they benefit from the Tourism Investment Act 2017. I want to encourage these interested businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses. This includes restaurants and visitor attractions, to please email Tourism Investment Act 2017 at gov.bm or go to www.gov.bm, Tourism Investment Act 2023 to learn more. Mr. Speaker, by continuously investing in and improving these aspects of our tourism product, I have no doubt that we can create an even more vibrant and enticing tourism industry that attracts and satisfies all our visitors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is by the Minister of Works. Minister,
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
good morning.
Mr. Speaker, as I traverse across the island daily to undertake the roles that the people of Bermuda have entrusted me with, I physically feel every crack and crevice on our roads. Mr. Speaker, members of this honorable House and the listening public should note that I am intrinsically aware of the state of our highway infrastructure, and the issues are not lost on myself or any of the technical officers within the Department of Works and Engineering. We receive reports every day from residents who are not satisfied with the length of time it is taking to fix the issues. Hearing these reports, especially those technical officers who day in and day out work tirelessly to provide services to the country, serve as an incentive to work harder to address them. Mr. Speaker, akin to what I have previously said in 4 statements prior to this one today, the repair of our roads are a priority for the Ministry of Public Works. To reiterate, the immediate pain for the motoring public will be well worth it, as when completed, these current infrastructure initiatives, that is BELCO's $250 million capital plan and our own water and wastewater master plan, which are digging up our roads, will see the protection of our freshwater supplies, protection of our electrical infrastructure, and ensuring sewage is properly disposed of. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with this being said, I rise again to provide this House with yet another report on the state of the island's roads and the various ongoing trenching projects. In the March 2023 update, I announced various completed, ongoing, and planned trenching and asphalting works. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, please allow these updates to those projects and the steps we are taking to address them. However, before I begin, a slight reminder to honorable members, a pull hole is a hole dug every 800 feet in the road to allow for cables to be pulled through the laid conduits and to be joined. With this reminder, given I delivered the following status regarding the trenching and pull hole portions. 1, the BELCO trench work on the Middle Road in Southampton from Lighthouse Road to Evans Bay through the roadway and railway trail did start in April 2023. The works are currently by 5 Star Island, and it is anticipated that it will be another 2 months before reaching the railway trail. By that time, we anticipate the removal of traffic lights currently in place. 2, the BELCO pull hole work for Middle Road near the Whitney Institute Middle School is now completed, inclusive of the pull hole work for Store Hill and North Shore Road up to the Barkers Hill roundabout. 3, the BELCO pull hole work for the eastern North Shore route, that is from Palmetto Road Railway Trail to Old Military Road and Frog Lane to the National Sports Center substation, is set to commence in September, subject to the delivery of specialized equipment. 4, unfortunately, attributed to supply chain issues, the works for pull holes at Atrix Veterinary on Middle Road Warwick to Lighthouse Hill, Middle Road to Jews Bay has not started as previously planned. This work will commence once the National Sports Center pull hole work has been completed. Mr. Speaker, in regard to the asphalting portions, I'm pleased to share the following. The permanent paving for trenching works at Coney Island, Fracture Street, and Wilkinson Avenue have all been completed. The permanent paving for Harrington Sound Road is progressing steadily, with works currently around Charcoal Hill heading towards Tom Moore's Tavern driveway. And 3, repair works for uneven surfaces have been addressed at Mullet Bay Road near Stokes Point Road, St. David's Entrance, Middle Road at Warwick Academy, and Middle Road at St. Anthony's Church. Mr. Speaker, these are not the only roadworks that have been completed over the last 4 months. Apart from those projects that I have now updated this Honorable House on, the following works have also been completed. Firstly, I'm sure honorable members are aware of the flooding issue at Perimeter Lane near Marsh Folly in Pembroke. This issue should be resolved in the immediate, as the ministry has now cleared the borehills, allowing for drainage. In addition to the clearing of the borehills and asphalt lip on Perimeter Lane at Gleebird Junction, and a drainage channel has been installed at the Gleebird bus lay-by to allow for excess rainwater to be redirected into the nearby canal, thereby reducing the flooding risk for the area. Mr. Speaker, since the start of our unusually wet first few months of summer, and to address the pothole situation, the ministry has filled in nearly 100 different potholes in 21 different areas across the island. And Mr. Speaker, just for clarity, if the potholes are reported to potholes@gov.bm, they will be fixed. Mr. Speaker, $2,027,000 has been budgeted for roadworks this year. The ministry is also the recipient of a $900,000 carry forward from the previous fiscal year to enable more capital roadworks to be done this year. Several locations that are some of the worst areas will be addressed, like South Road, Southampton near Henry VIII, Middle Road, Warwick near T and Tatum, and South Road at Collectors Hill Road Junction, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, to make the ministry's position crystal clear to honorable members and the listening public, there now is an allocated budget of $2,927,000 devoted to new paving works for this fiscal year. However, Mr. Speaker, this is nowhere near close to the substantive investment needed to repave all our roads. For example, if the government were to undertake an immediate initiative to fully repave those public and private roads that are in poor condition, approximately 226 kilometers, or half of our roadways, it would cost approximately $100 million over a 10-year period. Let me repeat, that's $10 million per year for 10 consecutive years, regardless of what the government's economic position or the island's macroeconomic status might be. This will be a quarter of the entire ministry's capital budget allocation for this year spent on just road paving alone. Mr. Speaker, just to put this into perspective, 1, there are 263 public roads totaling approximately 200 kilometers, and there are 1,080 private roads totaling approximately 253 kilometers. The estimated price for paving just 1 kilometer or half a mile of roadway on both lanes is $600,000. These costs are broken down to a single major component, namely the exorbitant price of asphalting material. It currently costs the ministry 62 cents on every dollar used for road paving for this material. 4, on islands, only a of paving equipment and a handful of personnel qualified to undertake the required works, all spread thinly across just 2 large organizations, one of which is the government. 5, the total cost to pave all public roads would be approximately $120 million. Total cost to pave all private roads would be approximately $76 million. And the reason for that is that most private roads are single-lane roads. Mr. Speaker, these are significant amounts of money. The $2,927,000 allocated this year will put but a small dent in the amount of paving we will do. There has to be a balance between competing infrastructure projects and other government priorities. Mr. Speaker, difficult decisions must be made by a government due to this economic climate we find ourselves in today. We will continue to look at ways that we can increase funding to road paving to improve the driving experience. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the ministry does not solely focus on fixing the roadways for vehicles, but we also ensure the safety of pedestrians. As such, the Cabinet will soon consider a request to purchase 16 brand-new solar-powered flashing beacon signal sets that will be installed at crosswalks at various locations across the island, from Mullet Bay in St. George's to Maximart in Whitehill. There will be a new safety signals to protect those crossing our roadways. To further protect pedestrians, the ministry has now repainted some 20 crosswalks across the island. This can be seen in places like Flats Village and Smiths Parish, Coral Hill, Whale Bay, and Harlem Heights in Hamilton Parish, and outside Ice Green in Paget Parish. The next scheduled work areas are in Ferry Reach in St. George's, South Road in Warwick, and Middle Road near Conceal. Mr. Speaker, as I've said previously, yes, the state of our roads are uncomfortable, but this sacrifice is well worth the wait. The Ministry of Public Works commits to getting our roadways fixed. However, we are not in a position to do everything all at once. Mr. Speaker, I continuously thank the public for their patience with this initiative, and as the overall infrastructure works conclude, we will follow with permanent asphalt paving. While not ideal in the interim, the ministry will continue to apply temporary asphalting and fix potholes. As always, Mr. Speaker, I will keep this House informed of progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in that of the name of the Minister of Education. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning, listening audience. Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, June 28th, and Friday, June 30th, respectively, I had the pleasure of attending the graduation ceremonies for both the Barclay Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy. During each of the last 6 years, I have rejoiced in witnessing the achievements of our students, from whom Bermuda's change makers and future leaders are being drawn. Thus, I am eager to share the accomplishments of our 2023 senior school graduating class with this honorable House and the Bermuda public. Mr. Speaker, these graduating classes in particular have had a rather unusual and unfortunate high school experience as they began their senior school journey just before the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. While adjusting to a new school, new teachers, and new peers, they're also required to adapt to learning at home via Zoom, then transitioning to a hybrid learning system where they attended school for in-person learning at least twice a week. They had little choice but to persevere through these challenges, and their reward is that they are now graduates of the Bermuda public school system and better prepared for the tests that will come as they pursue their personal, education, and professional aspirations. Mr. Speaker, the guest speaker at Barclay Institute's graduation was Barclay alumnus, Mr. Callan Minus of the 2014 class. Mr. Minus spoke about the transition from one season to another and how it is a principle of life, that one's ability to transition is important as it is a process of change and allows us to adapt to new environments. He cautioned graduates that at their next season will demand more effort than they had previously given, and that their ability to transition determines their potential and what they can achieve. Mr. Speaker, 133 students from the Barclay Institute met the criteria that the Ministry of Education set for graduation from the Bermuda public school system. Of the 133 students, 115 students graduated with the Bermuda School Diploma. 10 students graduated from the Bermuda Alternative School Diploma from Function and Academics program, and 8 students graduated with the Penn Foster High School Diploma. Of these graduates, 1 student was awarded Advanced Hours, summa cum laude. 6 students were awarded Advanced Honors, magna cum laude, and 6 students achieved Advanced Honors, cum laude. 1 student graduated from the Bermuda College with an associate's degree, and 5 students graduated with their nursing assistant certification. Mr. Speaker, 79 students have been accepted into top colleges and universities, with 44 going to the US, 21 to the UK, 12 going to Canada, and 2 are going to attend other schools internationally. 38 students plan to attend Bermuda College. 10 will be joining the workforce, and 6 are undecided at this time. Mr. Speaker, at Cedar Bridge Academy, alumnus Mr. Darren Trott from the class of 2013 was the guest speaker. Mr. Trott acknowledged the challenges he faces due to his disability as a result of being born with spina bifida, and the time it takes for him to complete his tasks and goals. Darren urged the graduates to understand that the time it takes to complete a task is not as important as ensuring that the task is completed. He also spoke of the importance of not staying in one's comfort zone and that their ability to adapt to change will allow them to grow and reach their goals. Mr. Speaker, having satisfied the criteria set out by the Ministry of Education for graduation from the BPSS at Cedar Ridge Academy, there are a total of 107 graduates. 89 students graduated with the Bermuda School Diploma. 5 students graduated with the Bermuda Alternative School Diploma from the Functional Academics Program. 5 students graduated with a Bermuda Functional Skills Certificate. 8 students graduated from the Penn Foster High School Diploma. 1 student graduated with honors distinction, and 11 students graduated with honors. Mr. Speaker, 2 students graduated from the Bermuda College with an associate's degree. 3 students graduated from the Bermuda College with a certificate in applied technology, and 5 students graduated with the nursing assistance certificate from the Bermuda College. Of the 107 graduates of Cedar Ridge Academy, 80 students have been accepted into one or more colleges in this fall. Outside of those attending Bermuda College, others will attend various colleges and universities overseas, including the London Metropolitan University, Arcadia, Michigan State, Dalhousie, and Full Sail University. 18 students were recognized for earning National Center of Construction, Education, and Research core certifications. Mr. Speaker, I cannot recognize the success of our students without commending all of those who have assisted, and encouraged them along the way. That includes parents and other family members, educators, support staff, school boards, and leadership teams, and the many volunteers and community partners that support our senior school students, all of whom played instrumental roles in helping our students reach this milestone. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to give special thanks to the graduating class of 2023. I see and understand many of the difficulties experienced by young people in this era. And despite adversity in our much changing world, they have already treaded a pathway to achievement as senior school graduates. While they have much more to accomplish, I would like to let them know that they will have the support of the Minister of Education and the government of Bermuda as they work towards their personal and professional growth into adulthood. Their successes and achievements will continue to make Bermuda a better place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of National Security. Minister?
That I made a statement to this honorable House on February 3rd, 2023, advising of the revised requirements for the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service at the airport and the commitment this government made to resolve the emergency situation that faced the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service. As I previously advised this honorable House, the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service operates the Airport Rescue Firefighting Services section, which provides aircraft rescue and firefighting services for the Al F. Wade International Airport. This is an essential service that enables the airport to serve commercial flights in accordance with international standards. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that I also advised of the increased staffing requirements at the airport in respect of the minimum duty strength and the need in the short term to bring in overseas firefighters to meet that revised requirement to ensure that airport operations continued uninterrupted. Clearly, we could not afford as a country to jeopardize the operation of the airport, which is an essential component of our economic stability and long-term sustainability. Mr. Speaker, it is important for me to underscore that the Airport Rescue Firefighting Services is a retained government service as part of the airport project agreement between Skyport and the Bermuda Airport Authority. The Bermuda Airport Authority is responsible for providing the retained government service and have transferred responsibility for the delivery of the Airport Rescue Firefighting Services to the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service by way of a memorandum of understanding in 2007. with an amendment in 2017. Mr. Speaker, and I stress, there is no fee paid by Skyport to the Bermuda Airport Authority or to the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service for this service. Mr. Speaker, since my last statement to this Honorable House on this matter, I am pleased to report that we have advertised and recruited a further 24 local recruit firefighters. These new recruits are scheduled to travel to Newcastle in the UK on the 5th of August, 2023, for 6 weeks to receive specialist training that will certify them as aircraft rescue firefighters. The Newcastle International Fire Training Academy is a world-class aircraft rescue firefighting training facility with highly qualified instructors. During this training, our firefighters will be required to demonstrate competence in the following areas: saving and preserving endangered life at incidents, extinguishing fires at aircraft incidents, maintaining operational readiness of resources, site and position vehicles at an incident location, implement action to resolve operational incidents, contain and control spillage or release of hazardous material, recognize airside hazards, and minimize risk. On successful completion of their training, each recruit will be issued with a certificate of competence in line with CAP 699, Standards for the Competence of Rescue and Firefighting Service Personnel, developed by the UK Civil Aviation Authority. Mr. Speaker, this recruitment drive represents the last phase of the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service's emergency plan to rapidly expand and build the extra workforce capacity required to meet the new minimum staffing levels mandated by the Aerodrome regulators. The fire service's efforts to reach this stage was extraordinary because of the timings of similar recruitment drives taking place in my wider ministry. Mr. Speaker, I met with the Chief Fire Officer and his management team this week, and I expressed our pleasure with the progress to date. Barring any unforeseen problems, the newly trained fire officers will replace the overseas consultant fire officers on October 1st, 2023. Mr. Speaker, not all jurisdictions hire raw recruits and train them for the fire service. Some will only hire trained and qualified firefighters. Bermuda, however, hires raw recruits and trains them to be firefighters. It typically takes 24 weeks for the foundation training, and then there is further specialist training. With this particular cohort, the intent is to have them certified as aircraft rescue firefighters and subsequently deployed at the airport to replace the remaining overseas firefighters by 1st of October 2023. We currently have 16 overseas firefighters remaining in Bermuda who will fulfill their contracts until they are replaced on the 1st of October 2023. On a related note, Mr. Speaker, I can advise that we are planning to fill a number of posts in the service resulting from retirements and recent promotions. This will include the Assistant Chief Firefighter's post. Earlier this month, 2 senior level management positions were filled. This is in alignment with the fire service's succession plan and departmental objectives for 2023-2024. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to ensuring that there are sufficient resources at the airport to maintain operations. We are also committed to recruiting and retaining Bermudians in the service in general. This essential service provides a challenging and rewarding career, and I encourage people to apply to join. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I hasten to remind this honorable House that I made a commitment to this country that we would replace the overseas firefighters at the airport with qualified Bermudians. This recruitment and overseas training of Bermudian firefighters will achieve that end. This is another example of a promise made and a promise kept, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hasten to thank the women and men throughout the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service for their continued outstanding service to this country, without which our lifeline at the airport will not be able to function and operate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to introduce amendments to the schedule of the Financial Assistance Regulations 2004, which is entitled the Table of Allowable Expenses. The purpose of these amendments is to increase the benefits for recipients, to ensure that the rates better reflect the cost of living in Bermuda. These changes will increase benefits received by over 2,000 seniors, disabled, low earners, and able-bodied recipients of financial assistance. Mr. Speaker, the Table of Allowable Expenses was last amended in April 2014 and no longer provides adequate support to those who are most vulnerable in our community. Cost of living expenses has increased tremendously since the last amendments, and as a result, an extensive review was carried out to determine the level of assistance required to lessen the burden for recipients on the financial assistance program. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to be dutiful and deliberate when providing support intended to ensure that members of our community can meet their basic needs. I am pleased to highlight some examples where increases have occurred in the hope that a significant positive impact will be experienced by families that are current recipients of financial assistance. The rent allowance for a one-bedroom accommodation will increase by 24% from $1,450 to $1,800. The disability allowance will increase by 15% from $650 to $750 per month. Funeral expenses will increase by 33% from $3,000 to $4,000. Nursing home rates will increase by 20% from $5,000 to $6,000 per month. Rest home allowance will increase by 25% from $4,000 to $5,000 per month, and other notable changes were made to benefits for electricity, food allowances, eye care exams, podiatry fees, telephone fees, and water fees. Further, Mr. Speaker, some new items were added to include support to address mental health issues and transitional housing for the homeless. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the commencement date for these amendments is the 1st of October, 2023. This enables internal processes to be completed to ensure effective implementation, such as updating the new rates on our computer system. Mr. Speaker, the government is very pleased to provide these increased benefits for Bermudians who are amongst the most vulnerable in our society. These increases are long overdue, but this government is committed to continuing to work for the people of Bermuda to improve their quality of life and support them in their time of need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement is also in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, today I laid before this honorable House the Child Daycare Allowance Amendment Regulations 2023. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of these regulations is to increase the value of awards and to expand the pool of persons eligible for the benefit. Specifically, it amends the Child Daycare Allowance Regulations to introduce tiered income-based benefits and a maximum gross annual household income of $130,000 with respect to an application for child daycare allowance. The amendment specifies that annual gross household income categories and the associated maximum awards that may be granted for an eligible child as follows. Category 1, a qualified person whose annual gross household income is up to and including $65,000 may be eligible for a maximum monthly allowance of $900 per month per child. Category 2, a qualified person whose annual gross household income is from $65,001 up to and including $97,000 may be eligible for a maximum monthly allowance of $700 per child. Category 3, a qualified person whose annual gross household income is from $97,001 up to and including $130,000 may be eligible for a maximum monthly allowance of $500 per child. Overall, Mr. Speaker, reforming the structure of awards will assist households to cope with the rising cost of daycare and to maximize the risk of families having to decide between child daycare services and employment. This additional support is paramount to sustaining households and ensuring children are on a developmental continuum from the earliest years. Mr. Speaker, the new rates have been uploaded into the Department of Financial Assistance computer system, and work has commenced to update the relevant forms to be in alignment with the amendments. The commencement date for these amendments will be the 1st of October, 2023. To close, Mr. Speaker, this increased benefit complements the duty-free concession that government has recently extended to daycare facilities. The two initiatives demonstrate the government's commitment to improving quality and access to daycare for Bermuda's families. Protecting early childhood education is vital for individuals' lifelong well-being and for sustainability of our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the final statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Transport. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to everyone. I rise today to address the significant milestone achieved in our transportation services for Bermuda cruise passengers. On September, July the 15th, Mr. Speaker, we experienced an influx of almost 10,000, matter of fact, it was more than 10,000 cruise passengers and approximately 3,000 crew staff, making it one of the highest anticipated passenger days this season. I'm proud to acknowledge the commendable efforts and collaboration of all stakeholders who contributed to the seamless transportation experience for these visitors. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I extend my gratitude to the dedicated individuals in the transportation sector, including minibus, taxi, ferry, and public bus operators and teams who work together harmoniously to ensure the smooth movement of our guests. Their professionalism and commitment to customer service played a pivotal role in creating a positive impression of Bermuda from the moment our visitors arrived. Additionally, I would like to recognize the invaluable efforts of our traffic officers stationed at TCD, or Transport Control Department, and the West End Development Corporation, WEDCO. These officers exhibited exceptional traffic coordination skills, especially in high traffic areas such as Dockyard and Horseshoe Bay. Their dedication and experience and expertise help maintain order and efficiency, further enhancing their overall transportation experience for our guests. Mr. Speaker, the success for this day serve as a prime example of what we can achieve when stakeholders work together towards a common goal. The collaboration between the various transportation entities showcased a coordinated and effective system, ensuring our visitors receive the best possible experience during their time in Bermuda. The Speaker had the great privilege of personally witnessing the general transportation areas, GTAs, at both Horseshoe Bay and Dockyard, which I had the opportunity to observe all the stakeholders in action. The coordinated efforts of these various entities in managing the transportation system were truly inspiring and left a lasting impression on me. As I arrived on the bustling transportation hubs, I was immediately struck by the remarkably efficiency with which everyone worked together to cater to the needs of the numerous cruise passengers. The level of organization and collaboration among these stakeholders is nothing short of exceptional. Throughout the day, I had the chance to interact with several drivers and transportation staff who demonstrated an unwavering commitment to provide top-notch service to our visitors. The professionalism and dedication to ensuring a smooth and enjoyable experience for every passenger were evident in their actions and demeanor. Mr. Speaker, I was also fortunate to have the opportunity to personally engage with several cruise passengers, and their overwhelming positive feedback about Bermuda was truly heartwarming. It was evident they were thoroughly pleased with their experience on the island. As I conversed with the visitors, they expressed their admiration for Bermuda's natural beauty, vibrant culture, and warm hospitality. Many remarked on the pristine beaches, crystal clear waters, and breathtaking landscape that left them in awe. Mr. Speaker, and of course, they conveyed their pleasure of the smooth transportation system on that day. Mr. Speaker, while we celebrate this achievement, it is essential to recognize that we have more high passenger days ahead this season. We are still on our journey to reach the pre-2018 high-end passenger days, and we acknowledge
that there is work to be done. The ministry remains firmly committed to the ongoing improvement of our transportation system to meet the demands of our passengers and residents. As we move forward, we must not rest on our laurels. Rather, let this accomplishment inspire us to continue striving for excellence in our transportation service. One of our high priority goals is to provide exceptional transportation experience for our visitors to Bermuda, ensuring they leave with fond memories and desire to return. Mr. Speaker, before I end my statement, is utmost critical to acknowledge the dedicated team at the Ministry's headquarters, particularly the transportation team whose hard work and strategic planning have been instrumental in achieving the success. The tireless efforts have contributed significantly to the effective coordination of transportation service for our cruise passengers. In conclusion, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to all individuals and organizations who played a part in making the High Passenger Day of July 15 a resounding success. Your commitment and dedications are invaluable. I'm confident that together we continue to elevate the standards of our transportation service. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to a close of the statements for this morning. We will now move on. The next item on the order paper, reports of committees. There are none. Question period. Ministers, there are members who have indicated they have questions for your statements this morning. So we'll take the question period now, and it is 10:56. The first question this morning is for the Minister of Tourism, and the question is from MP Kennedy. MP Kennedy, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, colleagues, and to Bermuda, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, my question is, assuming some thought has gone into the types of concessions that tourism is looking for to expand, and the fact that the minister has spoken about investment into concessions that would assist tourism, can the minister, for the public's edification, give some idea of those types of industries or types of concessions he believes might do well in assisting with our offering as a tourism product? And I ask that question so that the public, those people who might be interested in getting involved, could.
Minister?
I'm not quite understanding the question.
Could you
So if you can clarify.
clarify it a bit, member?
Sure, just interested if the minister could give the public an idea of some of the concessions that they may have identified as those things we'd like to see our private individuals, our Bermudians getting involved in to help with the product. Attractions or
Well, the primary concessions,
Minister's
Speaker.
on his feet.
the primary concessions are around the importation, the customs duty relief. And if you are a new restaurant, you will also get the concession of the employer's portion of the payroll tax.
Thank you. Supplementary?
And again, all of this is in the public domain.
Okay. Supplementary? Supplementary, okay. No further question? No. Minister, that brings an end to your question. The next statement this morning that has questions is for Minister Works. Minister Works, MP Kennedy would like to put a question to you. MP?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Considering that we have increased the resources to 2.9 for the roads, what I was interested in, and the minister mentioned that balancing this type of thing off with the resources and the likes is important. Understanding that with the 2.9 that he 2.927, I should say, million that he's increased it to, which would approximate about 2.5 miles of roads. Just curious, does he believe that the 2.9 exhausts the physical resources of both government and the private sector, or if we were to do more, does he believe that the resources available could accommodate more of an investment?
Okay. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the short answer is yes. We have an agreement with Eastern Asphalt to provide support for us both in terms of product, i.e. asphalt, as well as equipment, and we trade often in that regard. We have not finished looking at the funding that we have from a capital point of view this year, that we might be able to divert some more funds towards roadworks, and that work is ongoing.
Supplementary?
Yeah, no, second question.
Second
sorry.
question?
Yeah, second question. I could be wrong, and I'm hoping the minister can correct. Do we know whether or not the asphalt plant is up and running, and are we making any repairs to get it up and running?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that's a long story. I'll give the short version of it. We have had a full assessment of the plant.
Mhm.
That is about 30 years old. It is still a viable entity that can be repaired and kept in service for an extended period of time. So we are on the pathway of trying to get the parts first. We had a choice this year to either continue, put the plant down and fix it, or continue paving. So we're continuing paving, but we are getting the parts to be able to fix it after this summer. There's also some movement from a staffing point of view, in that the former manager of the plant has retired, and a new younger person has taken over from within Public Works, who really has hit the ground running, and you'll see his handiwork when you come out of St. George's on the Causeway, where there have been some paving works that have been done in patches. Instead of just filling the hole, they've cut out a longer rectangular piece and filled that and made it smoother. This is a process that will alleviate the need for the asphalt coming out of potholes with rain that may come in the future, and roadworks. So we are making progress in that regard. Cabinet colleagues may recall that we initiated a review of the work at the quarry in its entirety. That report is close to being produced for us. We expect that will give us a clear guide about what we should continue to do at the quarry and what we should do in a different way. As an example, we have expanded the purchase of GP vehicles to virtually every make known to man. We do not have that skill set at the quarry to be able to service every one of those vehicles. And so there is some combination of that may come out of this, where we will go back to the suppliers. First, we will restrict expanding this scope any further, but we will go back to some of the suppliers to fix those vehicles that are outliers to the experience and expertise that we have at the quarry.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary.
Go ahead.
Does the minister have an idea of what it would cost to get us to a point of being operational at the level that he would like at the quarry for the asphalt?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the last estimate, which was, I guess, I get confused about the class, whatever. The most questionable estimate is about $2 million.
Second sub?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Second supplementary. Based on the answer that he gave, for the asphalt itself, are we looking at alternative resources of sourcing the asphalt in and of itself? I am aware of where we used to buy it, but are we looking at other resources that might assist us in lower cost for asphalt?
Minister?
I'm not sure I understand the purchasing asphalt. The only place that we purchase asphalt from now, other than from our plant, is from Eastern Asphalt. It's them.
Bringing in yourself then.
Sorry?
Understood. You're not bringing any in at all then?
We are bringing in aggregate,
Agriculture.
and we bring in the other materials to make the asphalt, but we produce the asphalt ourselves, or East End does.
Okay. Third question?
No.
Okay. Minister, that brings to close the questions for you this morning. Members, the next question, this next statement that has questions this morning is a statement by the Minister of National Security. Minister, MP Dunkley has statements for you. MP?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Bermuda. To the Honorable Minister, appreciate the update. With the hiring of the 24 recruits, once they're trained, Minister, will this bring the airport fire and rescue service up to required and mandated levels?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that. The short answer is yes.
Supplementary?
Second question, Mr.
Second
Speaker.
question.
The Honorable Minister in his statement refers to the extraordinary challenges, and those are my words. I know you use extraordinary because similar recruitment drives are taking place within the ministry. Can the ministry give a brief update on the success of those similar recruitment drives within the ministry?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The similar recruitment drives are still ongoing. And as we complete the process, I have no problem bringing the results to the House.
Thank you. Supplementary?
No, next question,
third
Mr.
question?
Speaker. Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker. In the statement, the minister focused in on the Airport Fire Rescue Service. And we all know, honorable members of this House and members of the public, all are aware that the Bermuda Fire Rescue Service is much broader than that.
Mhm.
Can the minister please inform this honorable House of the current staffing levels of the Fire Rescue Service outside the airport? How many vacancies exist, and is there a current recruitment drive?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we have just finished the recruitment drive for the airport. As the honorable member will know, being a former Minister of National Security, it was a critical stage that the government went through when we had to triple the amount of firefighters at the airport in such a short period. Now that that is complete, we will be looking at how we could fix other resources in other parts of our ministry.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the answer to part of the question, so I'll use my supplementary to re-examine the question again. Can the honorable minister please inform this honorable House of the current staffing levels outside of airport operations and how many vacancies exist?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I would say it would be approximately 15 vacancies that exist in the structural division of the fire service. And now that we've gotten the airport sorted out, we will be looking to have another recruitment drive to bring our other numbers up to date.
Supplementary? And the question. Thank you. And the final statement that has questions this morning is that for the Minister of Transport. Minister of Transport, MP Kennedy has questions for you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, identifying the fact that you believe that you had a successful effort at dealing with such a number of folks coming to the island, visiting the island, were you able to identify any challenges that we might have that we need to work on going forward for the season?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's always improvements we can move. That is getting some transportation individual there faster than we do and a faster turnaround. But other than that, it works. So there's always a chance for improvement.
I think he asked that could you identify any area?
Mr. Speaker, as other colleagues may be aware, we are working on a significant modernization and harmonization which we're trying to deal with, and we're working on that. Once we get that, I will sort it out. We can move further.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary. I did have the privilege of cruising back to Bermuda for, unfortunately, no one would think for medical reasons, but couldn't fly. So upon arriving at Dockyard, unfortunately, on the ship with almost 3,000 passengers, there were no taxis at all there. So that's why I was asking the question, identifying any potential areas. So is there any move towards getting more types of vehicles to assist outside of the taxis and or maybe expanding on the minibuses? I don't know, to help accommodate with that. There was not literally one taxi available when I came in on the cruise ship.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, it depending on which cruise ship he was on, but sometimes most taxi drivers, there are some taxi drivers that are there, but because of the movement of the individuals and serving, well, probably actually 7,000 cruise passengers at any one time, there's always a particular, whether it's minibuses or taxi drivers, it may not be in a particular place, but there is a turnaround where they come back.
Supplementary?
I have supplementary.
Yes.
Can the minister please give us an update on how he's addressing the challenges at the bus depot in regards to servicing the community? Can you give an update on the challenges that you face in bus depot in regards to delivery of regular services? I've had a number of calls in regards to challenges of buses being on time or being canceled, and the passengers have not been advised. And so I'd like for you to speak to that, please.
Mr. Speaker, that is not in the preview of this particular paper. We're talking about the cruise industry. I'll be willing to talk to the member later, and as he is aware, I sent him an email on that particular issue.
Supplemental. I recognize the minister's comments, but the question was generally in regards to transportation. When he didn't restrict it to just shipping and cruise ships, and hence the question.
Mr. Speaker, I did restrict this particular
I'm actually thumbing through
message
it now.
to cruise ship. We had talked about the minibuses and the taxis coming from the cruise industry in Dockyard and in Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah, the statement starts with the member identifying what is his term win by indicating that they achieved a milestone in in Bermuda's cruise passengers. And it speaks to how they're able to move those tourist passengers. Okay, supplementary?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, I appreciate the statement from the Honorable Minister about the win on July 15th. But if you win one day and you lose in coming days, it certainly sets you backwards. The Honorable Minister, are you aware of challenges this past week at Horseshoe Bay? And obviously the minister is, because he's smiling, on at least 2 consecutive days or 2 days in the past week where there's been calls for service at Horseshoe Bay, outright urgent calls for service. I've seen the video circulating where there's been dozens of people waiting, perhaps hundreds of people waiting for transportation and couldn't get any urgent calls for that. Secondly, well, I changed dozens to hundreds because I didn't want members on the other side to say that I'm making this situation more dramatic than it is.
Now put
But
your
I've seen the
question
video,
in, put your
Mr. Speaker,
question.
and if this government wants to belittle the fact that people getting transportation after talking about a win, they're turning the win into some own goals. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I understand that at least one day this week, the facility was closed down at Horseshoe Bay when there were many people down there using the facility. So ask the Honorable Minister if he, one, is aware of these concerns, and secondly, how is he addressing these concerns? And obviously, government members support me because they're intently listening and commenting on what I say. So thank you, Minister. So I have 2 questions for you. One, are you aware of these concerns? And secondly, what are you doing to address these concerns? Thank you.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure whether the honorable member saw both videos. There are 2 videos going around. But let me just say this, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there's more than 2 videos going around. I've seen more than 2 videos. I'm happy to share with the honorable member.
Just let the minister speak to me.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say, many would have seen a video regarding tourists waiting at Horseshoe Bay for transportation. I'm sure that's a video the honorable member saw, which I saw. I personally witnessed this on myself on June 15th when beach goers wanted to leave immediately due to the rain. This had happened that particular day. When you have rain pouring in at one time and 1,000, there are normally 2,000 people on the beach on average, dashing to get transportation, then there's a chance. Now, on that day, the cruise boat, as I said, it was roughly about 2,000 people on the beach. So when it started to rain that day, there was a mad rush again to leave, which caused long lines. However, I understand that the minibus group sorted it out within 30 minutes to get this moving. Mr. Speaker, a picture or video can speak 1,000 wrong words without the proper contents around it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary? Yes.
Yes, Minister. Minister, would you agree or disagree that having a few dozen, hundreds, or thousands of tourists down at the beach when we were hit with a torrential downpour from out of the blue is a good problem or a bad problem?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, let me make it very clear. I am a person who loves tourists, and when it rains, I get pretty well disappointed myself. Hence why on the 15th, I went personally, left a dockyard, went to Horseshoe Bay, and helped out the transportation industry. But the industry was able to recover within a short time. And if the honorable member, the honorable Michael Dunkley, had seen a particular video after that one, the person, so I'll send it to you, the person said, do not believe in all the hype. Because within 2 minutes, the particular individuals on those buses came back to dockyard.
Supplementary, your second sub.
Yes, Honorable Minister, and can you address the facility being closed? Horseshoe Bay Beach Pavilion. I hear honorable members say it's a private facility, but it's leased out from government at our most popular beach. It makes sense for that facility to be open. I hear honorable members.
Point of order,
not
Mr.
calling that-
Speaker.
Mr.
Point of
Speaker,
order.
But if they
Point
think
of order.
it's good to have
Yes.
the facility closed. with
Mr.
people on the
Speaker,
beach,
point of
well,
order.
Take the
We're
point of
missing the
order.
boat.
Point of order.
Yes, point of order. I think the honorable member is misleading the House. If he's going to ask that question, Mr. Speaker, he should state the time of day that it was not open. Or maybe he doesn't know, it's just being mischievous. Now, I do have a supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Did you want the members, is it included in
Sure.
his question?
It was in middle of the day, Mr. Speaker, so there's no excuse.
Point of order,
11
Mr.
o'clock at night.
Speaker.
Point of order?
The minister is addressing the question to is responsible for transportation. That is not the appropriate minister to be addressing that question to.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the appropriate minister is in the House and can answer, and it'd be appreciated.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Members. Are we back on track, everyone? Okay. Everyone's calmed down? Good. Do you have a supplementary to the minister?
I do, Mr. Speaker. Minister, are you aware of any other tourist destination in the world when they are hit with torrential, unpredicted downpours, as we experienced, have hundreds of buses and minibuses on hand to move tourists that may leave a particular beach at any given time?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Any other supplementaries? MP Kennedy, you had to ask one question and one supplementary. Do you have a second question? So you finished with the questions. Thank you. Thank you. Members, that brings us to a close of questions for the Minister of Transport, which actually brings us to a close of the question period. Thank you for your participation. We will now move on. The next item on the order this morning is the congratulatory and obituary speeches, and I'm just going to clear the clock and get us reset. Oh, see, had my head down fixing it. Minister Birch, I see you in front. I'll take you first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have commented previously about the challenges with onboarding staff within the public service, and been the subject of some reprimand by members of the civil service. So I will equally stand and offer congratulations to some onboarding of staff in the Ministry of Public Works, which is nothing pleased me more than yesterday to get the congratulations for people who are employed at the depot in Prospect. Before I name them, Mr. Speaker, this is important and significant because in many areas of the ministry, and I suspect within government, there are people who have been acting for years in posts. And what that means, Mr. Speaker, is that you then got a double whammy because they're acting in the posts that they've are acting in, but they're blocking in the posts that they're substantive in. And so you create a complete backlog in various departments by having people acting for so long without being able to go through the process of actually appointing them to the post. So the number one candidate that I was complaining about is now the principal facilities manager at the depot, and he was appointed several months ago. That's Sheridan Ming, who is an amazing civil servant. Anybody who's worked with him or had an interaction with him will have the same response. His response to every request is the same. How can he get it fixed? So he now has Jerry Jones, who was appointed yesterday as the assistant principal's facilities manager, and the following gentlemen have been appointed to the facilities maintenance manager's post. They are Mr. Edwin Bashir, Mr. Thomas Brown, Mr. Leslie Mills, Mr. Lewis Smith, and Mr. Dale Thompson. I extend sincere congratulations to them, and I give indication that now that they've been appointed to substantive posts, the posts below them and the posts below them will also flow. So when we come back to this house, I'll have another list, and I'm a happy minister today because we're getting staff and we're getting work done and we're making progress. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. MP Fogo, you jumped up before the minister was even finished. Would you like to
I
your 3
did.
minutes?
Because, that's what we're supposed to do, to catch your eye, Mr. Speaker.
All right, go right ahead, my dear. Let's see how that works this afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, I just have one note of condolences to the family of the Farbert family in St. George's, which is an extremely large family. We've lost Mr. Maurice family. He was one of the owners of what was called Mama Angie's or Farbert's to most St. Georgians. His son now is the proprietor of that establishment, but a very nice man, a communal person, polite, the epitome of what a gentleman should be. And St. George's is at a loss with his passing. So I would like to associate MP Renee Ming, Minister Lane Farbert, MP Derek Burgess, MP Kim Swan. Excuse me? The Hill House? I don't even know if the Hill House knew him, but if you want the Hill House associated, I shall associate the entire house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP. MP Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to one of my most precious constituents, Ms. Josephine Matthews. Originally born in St. Kitts, she came to Bermuda many, many years ago and was the epitome of a generous soul, a community spirit, and a lover of all she knew and all who knew her. We're very saddened by her loss, and share a funny story with you, Mr. Speaker, but because she was a very big supporter of mine because she first knew my mother. My mother met her when she was working at the obstetrician's office when she came in with her last daughter, Josette, when she was pregnant with Josette. But when I met her, she and I bonded over my time working in St. Kitts and being able to reminisce about the places she had grown up and things she knew. But what was funny during the 2017 election, some mystery organization put out some flyers attacking me. And when I went by her house, she had it prominently displayed on her fridge. And I said, well, why you got that up for me? These people are good after me. She says, because you look so good in that picture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Mr. Premier, you are quick to jump. You have your 3 minutes, sir.
Hey, you got to try, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask that this honorable House do send condolences, and I will associate all members, on the passing of Miss Martha Dismont, who passed last Friday, or Thursday, sorry. I was deeply saddened, and I'm sure that all in this honorable House and the country were saddened to learn of her passing. There's no question that she was a champion for children and for families and for the work which is needed to repair some of the long-term damage in our society and to heal some of the measures of our social fabric. And we know that she led the Family Center for over 30 years and helped to turn it into an important institution in our community. Her devotion to helping those in need and the positive impact that she made in Bermuda will live on for a long time, and no question that she will be missed. Mr. Speaker, I had a special connection with Ms. Dismont, as not only did I know her in her professional capacity, but I also represented her and her daughter in this honorable House. And I remember the first time when I knocked on the door at the top of Princess Estates, and I was, I looked at the name on, I was wondering if this is the Martha Dismont. And there she was, and she came out the door, and we had a first talk when I canvassed with her in 2012. And so I certainly want to extend my condolences to her daughter, Aruna, who I saw last evening and we'll see later today, as they lost another family member who we will be remembering. And I just want to associate the entire House with those condolences. I'm sure there'll be other members who'll get up and speak and give their remarks. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to ask to send condolences to the family of the North Village legend and the club's first football captain, Howard Bucks and Romaine, who sadly passed away recently in his 84th year. I had the honor of participating in the North Village Community Club's 65th Legends Ball last year, where Mr. Romaine and other legends of his historic club were honored. And my thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure of the whole House, with his children, Donna, Judy, Andrea, and the entire and extended North Village family and Romaine family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. MP De Silva, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like the House to send condolences to Janetta Simons from Somerset, affectionately known as Nata. She spent her entire life in Somerset, Mr. Speaker. I think you may know her well.
Yes.
She first lived on what is now Grandstand Lane, then Cooks Hill, then Bob's Valley, Soundview, and then finally back to Cooks Hill. She never left Somerset, Mr. Speaker. For those that know her, knew her husband. That's Millard, the great Millard Shiner Simons.
Yes.
I spoke about Shiner's, his son Shiner's wife's mother's passing just 2 weeks ago. And the funny thing about Netta was that she used to get asked all the time how she meet Shiner. And she said she couldn't remember. That was, she used to tell people of Somerset, I can't remember where I met him, but the word is around Somerset is, with her, is that she used to have children every 3 or 4 years, as you know, Mr. Speaker. So it was always a very enlightening conversation when it came to Netta. And she was also known for some famous quotes, and I'll give but 2, Mr. Speaker, or 3. And one of them was, if you can't read, you can't do anything. Another good one was, she said to a young lady one time of summer, she said, send my son home. If not, he will not marry you. And the other one she was famous for is, if you think you're important, drop dead and see what happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In memory of Shiner Simons, who happens to be a very good friend of mine, his mother, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Thank you, MP. Minister Weeks, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start off my remarks for congratulating one of my constituents. I'm not sure if members congratulated the participants of the Island Games last week, but I'd like to, if so, I'll be associated with them.
Some were
But-
done.
But I want to talk about someone in particular. I have a young constituent, a 20-year-old constituent playing on the badminton team. He stays on Clark's Lane in North Shore. I just wanted to congratulate him and wish him well. They didn't win any medals this time, but I tell him keep their head up. And it's a young team, and they will be able to get success in future Island Games. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this time to alert members if they haven't heard that the police graduated 9 more recruits yesterday. So we are definitely moving on up. It was six males and 3.
Associate me, please.
Associate the MP from Jenny Richardson. Yeah. But Mr. Speaker, it was six males, 3 women, and I'm happy to say they were all Bermudians and/or spouses of Bermudians, Mr. Speaker. So they are excited, and we are looking forward to them joining the police force proper. Mr. Speaker, as I take my seat, I want to make a note.
Hey, Megan.
I want to make a congratulations to TNN Network and Kendrick Sewell for the new online mentor in the barbershop discussion, which started July 8th. And tomorrow they have another hearing is scheduled for the Ohana Barbershop in Somerset. So, Mr. Speaker, the aim of this series of programs is to stop at 8 particular barbershops from Somerset to St. George with the aim to tackle the gang behavior and lifestyle with an effort to bring this behavior to an end. Men are talking, Mr. Speaker, and there are more men who want this to end, this beefing and gang warfare that's only killing our young black man here in Bermuda. So, Mr. Speaker, I encourage all men that are able to try to participate at some point in the barbershop talks that will be held over the whole island in an 8-part series. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. MP Swan, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be associated with the condolences to the Furbert this month families and also to that of the Remain family. On a happier note, I would like for congratulations to be sent to the founder and co-director of the Shoto Cup Martial Arts, our very own Sergeant Major Allen and his team, and Associate Minister Weeks and MP Ming with that, and I'm sure the whole House who has realized the 40-year dream in the Shoto Cup, but the expression of support from families and the young people and the respect shown to and from their senseis is something that is deserved of emulation in every sport and discipline in Bermuda. I'd also like to send congratulations to those who participated and were recognized in the 37th annual Denton Hurdle Memorial Awards, Mr. Speaker. It was another outstanding expression in our community of all the good work that is happening in many spheres. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd like for suitable recognition to go out to one of our very own, Mr. Jason Jackson, the golf course superintendent at Port Royal Golf Course and Ocean View Golf Course, and I'll associate the whip, Brother Terrell, and also Mr. Zane De Silva, on the good work that he's doing. And he and I co-authored an article that appeared in the Bermuda Business Review, which for me was an honor to help feature a young man who's an example of the bright future that we hold with the amount of persons that are unassuming in just going along and doing what is outstanding on a day-to-day basis, but also the amount of young Bermudians that he's bringing along in the field, uplifting blue collar workers to managerial positions. I'm very proud of what he's doing and just wanted to recognize it. And finally, I'd like to send congratulations out to the team at Ocean View, because as we're speaking today, the Island Construction, Cobra, Puma, Junior Golf Championships are taking place at Ocean View. And it was the brainchild of the late Brian Morris, but OJ Pitcher is holding up the fort. And I don't have to associate MP Zane De Silva, because the event, I'm congratulating him for what he's doing in that event and sponsoring golf in many avenues. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Speaker.
you, Minister Member. MP Famous, you have 3 minutes on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, I come to your humble house with a heavy heart. Bermuda has lost quite a few people recently, but this week in particular, we lost a woman who, when she was down her lowest, she did for others. It's a lady originally from Parsons Road of St. Kitts heritage, moved to Devonshire, Devon Springs to be precise. Last year, she was diagnosed with what nobody wants to be diagnosed with. And even in the midst of her travail, she was the one always on social media encouraging people to look out for each other, take care of their health, take care of their family. She shared with many what others would have kept private. And I speak of one, Robin Tudor, of the Tudor Douglas clan. Mr. Speaker, she has a large family, a large extended family, and an unlimited amount of friends. But most of all, Mr. Speaker, she is someone who loved the Lord, so we know where she is at this moment. Also, Mr. Speaker, Devonshire has lost another lady, 98 years old, Miss Dorothy Saints of Ponciana Road. She has a beautiful family. Her daughter, Laura, Leon Smith, took care of her right up to the last moment. And we will miss her in Devonshire. In closing, Mr. Speaker, no one likes to go to funerals, but I must speak of two ladies who are always at funerals. A lady, Miss O'Connor, mother to Patrina O'Connor, Power Girl, and a lady, Miss Tony Robinson. These persons sing as if they're practicing to be with the choir of angels in heaven, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that 190th year of recognizing 190th year of the Declaration of Abolition of Slavery, but we still have slavery.
Yes.
And we'll get to that later.
MP Dunkley, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be associated with the condolences to the Saints and Tudor family, the passing of those two wonderful ladies, and associated with the condolences by the Honorable Premier to the Dismount family and passing of Martha. I've known Martha for an extended period of time, and I certainly, like all members of this House, appreciated what she did for the less fortunate and appreciated her constant laser-like focus on trying to help families and those that are struggling. And one thing I keenly also appreciated about Ms. Dismount was the fact that not only was she tireless in what she did, but she was never afraid to let you hear of what she thought and shared those words in the appropriate way. Too often in society, Mr. Speaker, we couch what we believe in a way that the message gets lost. Martha was straight to the point, and she will be missed in everything that she did, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to be associated with the congratulations given by the Honorable Minister Weeks and my honorable colleague who filled in for me yesterday at the recruitment class for the BPS officers that graduated. Wish them the best in service and thank them for stepping forward. And associated with congratulations by the Honorable Premier to Dr. Derek Binns on his retirement. Mr. Speaker, I was blessed to have worked with Dr. Benz in the Cabinet Office, and I always appreciated his professionalism in working closely with him and the opportunity to work for a better future for all Bermudans. And Dr. Benz should be congratulated for his service to the people of Bermuda. And we wish him well in whatever he decides to do in his retirement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? There are none on their feet. Opposition Leader, you almost missed it. Opposition Leader, you have your 3 minutes on the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise just to associate myself with, in regards to the comments made in the passing of Miss Martha Dismont. She was truly a social beacon in this country, and the lights of that beacon have faded, and we will never be the same without her. Mr. Speaker, she gave until she can give no more. As you all know, if you knew her, she was a lady, and she was direct. And as my colleague, the Honorable Michael Dunkley said, she didn't mince her words, but she presented them in the most effective way. But having said that, I take the view that Mrs. Dismont had dedicated herself to improving the welfare of families. She provided them with academic support, mental support. She advocated for our families, and she took a holistic therapeutic approach to addressing the family challenges. Mr. Speaker, she has helped many, many families in this country. And someone said to me, well, maybe we should invite her to become a national hero. So, Mr. Speaker, that's another consideration. I think it'd be warranted. She was recognized in 2015 by the Queen when she received her MBE. But I think we should do something more personal here in Bermuda because she truly, truly deserves it. You know, she founded the Family Center, and the vision of the Family Center is a healthy Bermuda where all families are valued, supported, and empowered to thrive. Mr. Speaker, that vision should be adopted by all of Bermuda and not just the Family Center. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to again convey my condolences to Runa for a saint when it comes to addressing social challenges and supporting our families in Bermuda. I'd like to also associate myself in regards to the retirement of Derek Benz. He has had a sterling career in government. He's always been very kind and very helpful, and we wish him all the best during his retirement. I see him riding his cycle 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes when I walk. So at least he's getting fit to have a wonderful retirement. So again, thank you, Dr. Benz, for your contributions, and I wish you all the best during your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Opposition Leader. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? I see none on their feet. We'll move on. The next item on the order paper is matters of privilege. There are none. Personal explanations. There are none. Notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. There are none. They were a little confused that time. We'll just leave them. They were confused. Yes, we note that. We'll just leave them back there. Government introduction of bills. There are 2 government bills to be introduced this morning. The first is in the name of the Minister of Tourism and Cabinet Office. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am introducing the following bill for its first reading so that it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. Distilleries Licensing Act 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the second is in the name of the Minister of Transport. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm introducing the following bill for its first reading so that it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. Motor Car Classic Motor Car Classic Cars Amendment Act 2023.
Thank you, Minister. There are no opposition bills, no private members' bills. Notice of motions, there are none. Members, it now takes us to the orders of the day. There are two orders to be discussed, debated today. The first being the Investment Fund Amendment Act, and the second being the contributory pension. I understand that due to Premier's attendance at one of the funerals, he's asked that we will do the contributory pensions first. And the opposition are in favor? Yes? Premier, we'll do item number 2 first. So we will now do the contributory pension amendment of benefits, number 2, order 2023. Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm grateful for the opposition leader's deferral to allow me to do the second order first. I'm grateful for my colleague, the Deputy Premier, who will be carrying the second matter for me later as I attend the funeral of my constituent, Ms. Joan Dismont. Mr. Speaker, I move that consideration be given to the draft order entitled the Contributory Pensions Amendment of Benefits Number 2, Order 2023, proposed to be made by the Minister of Finance in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 37 of the Contributory Pensions Act 1970.
Are there any objections? There are none. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the tabling of the Contributory Pensions Amendment of Benefits Order 2023 last week in this Honorable House reflects the government's resolute and unwavering commitment to improving the quality of life of our senior citizens. Mr. Speaker, the contribution to our seniors have made to this country is immeasurable, and therefore this government continues to prioritize its 2017 election platform promise of increasing pensions by the rate of inflation every year. We recognize the hardships that too many of our seniors now endure due to the rising cost of living, and we are committed to doing what we can to support them so they live the dignified lives they observe. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's also important to note that it's not just the seniors who benefit from an increase in pension, but also those persons who are disabled and receive disability benefits underneath the Contributory Pensions Act. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda provides retired individuals and those who are disabled with a combination of social insurance benefit from the Contributory Pension Fund and a mandatory occupational pension from their employer. In a perfect world, the social insurance benefit should provide a first tier or basic option, which a second tier or occupational pension would most likely supplement. Through no fault of their own, however, currently a number of retired persons are not receiving an occupational pension and are therefore relying on the social insurance benefit as their sole source of income. Mr. Speaker, this situation could be better, and the government continues to do its utmost to ensure that seniors who rely heavily on their social insurance benefits are suitably cared for. And Mr. Speaker, it is not lost on me that earlier today, the Honorable Minister for Economy and Labor tabled the regulations that are adjusting the table of allowable expenses. And that is just one way that we supplement those senior citizens who may only have a single source of income of social insurance to make sure that they can continue to live with dignity. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding that, the Contributory Pension Fund, which I'll refer to in this brief as CPF, the CPF benefit provides an important base retirement income. Currently, the maximum pension paid under the CPF remains about 26% of the median annual gross earnings for Bermudians, as indicated in the Bermuda Job Market Employment Brief produced by the Department of Statistics. And this compares closely to the United Kingdom, where the full basic state pension as percentage of average earnings is around 24%. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of the order is to increase pensions and other benefits under the Contributory Pensions Act, such as those for the disabled, by 4.1% as of August 2023, when increases are typically made to the benefits. Per the government actuary, the 4.1% increase in benefits would represent a small negative impact to the overall development of the fund. Mr. Speaker, honorable members are advised that based on the CPI, the cost of living has increased by a further 4.1% since the last increase was granted. Therefore, the proposed benefit increase fully covers the costs of the prevailing rate of inflation to ensure that our seniors can keep up with the cost of inflation. Mr. Speaker, there are 5 types of benefits payable under the Contributory Pensions Act 1917, and all the pension allowances will be increased by 4.1%. These pensions and allowances are as follows. First, the contributory old age pension. Second, the contributory widows or widowers allowance. Third, the contributory disability benefit. Fourth, the non-contributory old age pension. And finally, the non-contributory disability benefit. Mr. Speaker, the basic contributory pension is $1,106.76 per month. The maximum contributory pension currently payable, which includes additional increments, is approximately $1,610 a month. Altogether, some 14,766 persons currently receive benefits under the Act. The proposed 4.1% increase with additional increments will raise the basic contributory pension from $1,106.76 a month to $1,152 a month, and the maximum benefits will be raised from $1,610 a month to $1,673 per month. The increase in pension payments will be in the September 15, 2023 payments, and thereafter beneficiaries should expect a 4.1% increase in their regular monthly payment on the subsequent 15th of the month. Mr. Speaker, I am proud of the fact that this 4.1% increase marks the 5th pension increase. Yes, Mr. Speaker, you heard correctly. The 5th pension increase the Progressive Labor Party government has put through in its time since returning to government in the last 6 years. Oh, yes. And, Mr. Speaker, this is in stark contrast to the former government who made our seniors wait almost 5 years before they gave them a single pension increase. And we all remember what they said at that time, Mr. Speaker. Money doesn't grow on trees. Let us not forget. As a reminder, Mr. Speaker, just a month after our election, when we were elected, when we came back to the House, we made pension increases effective in August 2017. That time, in 2017, 1.75%. The next year, 1.4%. The next year, 1.2%. And then last year, as there was a little bit of break in the pandemic, we made sure that we put it through for 2.75%, which was effective in August 2021, which, Mr. Speaker, as we said at that time, was slightly above the prevailing rate of inflation, noting that although the overall rate of inflation was a bit lower, we wanted to make it higher than the prevailing rate to account for the increase in the cost of food, which we know affects persons on fixed incomes more. And today, Mr. Speaker, we are passing our 5th increase since our election of 4.1%. Mr. Speaker, it is very simple. In every case in which this government has increased benefits for our seniors, the increase has been in line with or exceeded the prevailing rate of inflation, thereby placing seniors' pensions when compared to the consumer price index in good stead. And before I move on, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we compare the records. The One Bermuda Alliance granted one pension increase in 55 months, Mr. Speaker. One pension increase in 55 months. None, because it is the truth. Mr. Speaker, we went to the electorate. We said that we would make sure that seniors' pensions keep up with the rate of inflation. We have delivered that, and this is the 5th pension increase that we have done since we've been in office, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the 2023 increase in benefits would normally be accompanied by a corresponding increase in contributions by an actually recommended rate of 6.2%, which would be above the benefits rate. Mr. Speaker, it should also be noted that contributions were last increased in August 2018 by 4.2%. Members will recall that in the 2018 throne speech, the government announced that Bermuda's social insurance system will be changed from a fixed rate contribution to one based on percentage of income. Therefore, it is proposed that the contribution increases will be incorporated into the proposed changes, which are currently, as I mentioned last week in this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, nearing finalization to be brought to the House in the next session. Mr. Speaker, it has been regularly discussed that the Contributory Pension Fund, CPF, and the Public Service Superannuation Fund, PSSF, pensions are underfunded, and if there are no changes made, will, like many pension funds in the world, run into difficulties if reforms are not urgently undertaken. This means that for many Bermudians, unless the government acts, there will not be the space for benefits in the future. And what is important to note is that this government is taking action. What's wrong, Colin? No problem. Mr. Speaker, I note the important work done over the last 2 years by the Pension Reform Committee. This committee includes officials from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Funds Investment Committee, assisted by consultants McKinsey & Company, and also LifeWorks, which is formerly known as Morneau Chappelle, who've been longtime actuarial advisors for the government of Bermuda, who have been assessing the current state of the PSSF and the CPF, and making sure to advance various options to address government pension funds, while, Mr. Speaker, keeping in mind this government's pledge to make contributions to social insurance progressive. Just as a point, Mr. Speaker, 98% of global government pension funds, which are tier 1 pension funds, have contributions that are based on income. Bermuda is literally the sole outlier, Mr. Speaker, the sole outlier. The pension reform work that is being done is developing options to sustainably address the deficit and secure future benefits for Bermuda's people. And once that work is finalized, increases to pension contribution levels will form one part of the reforms to ensure that this fund is sustainable. And yes, Mr. Speaker, I know that is hard to hear, that there will be increases. But the fact is, Mr. Speaker, if there is no action taken, then there will be no sustainable pensions. And that is not something that this government will allow. Mr. Speaker, as it's been previously stated, the government will shift the percentage of income to a contribution model, to an income contribution model for the Contributory Pension Fund. And as I mentioned, the changes are consistent with the overall majority of Tier 1 pension systems globally. And based on the results of continued actuarial analysis, the Pension Reform Committee will be able to put forth options to achieve the path to pension availability for the government. And Mr. Speaker, just by way of update, yesterday I had another meeting in the Ministry of Finance with the representatives, fine-tuning some of the proposals. As mentioned, they are consulting with the unions on the matters related to the Public Service Superannuation Fund, which is also important. We're not discussing that today. And the matters related to the Contributory Pension Fund will be matters of broad public consultation. Certainly matters are related to employers. Employers play a part as well, and also the broader public. But it's important to note, and for the young persons listening who will ask questions, say, I'm paying money into social insurance, will I get this money out? The answer is yes. We must make the change and adjustment to make it sustainable, but there is no doubt that we will be able to make it sustainable. Mr. Speaker, while contribution rates were last increased in 2018 by 4.2%, the Ministry of Finance has considered the position of the CPF, and it is anticipated that the fund can withstand a year's delay in contribution increases. However, it will be critical to adjust the contributions next year when we advance the pension reform measures. Mr. Speaker, as of the 31st of March 2023, the fund had net assets of over $1.9 billion, representing approximately 10 times the value of benefits paid in the fiscal year. The effect of this is that if the CPF receive no further contributions, and that's the thing, because of course, Mr. Speaker, we know that it does receive contributions on a regular basis. People continue to work. But if there were no further contributions, the fund could still continue to pay out pensions the prevailing rate for almost 12 years. However, the reality is that contributions will continue through time and will be increased from time to time. Consequently, the prudent investment of pension fund assets is an important factor in the fund's financial position. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, the government's sound investment strategy for pension fund assets is already achieving good results. As mentioned above, as at March 31st, 2023, the contributory pension fund stood at $1.9 billion, and the nominal rate of return for the 10 years preceding March 2023 has been 5.4%. As evidenced in the 2020 actual report tabled in this Honorable House in February 4th, 2022, the viability of the fund in the short to medium term is good, with the fund being positive for the next 21 years until 2044. However, recognize the long-term challenges of pensions globally, the ministry will continue to monitor the performance of the fund. And it should also note that the funding policy for the fund is not only based on full actuarial funding, but also the work which we're doing in reform is based on sustainable funding. And that is that contributions plus investment income should cover benefits and administrative expenses on an annual basis, while the funds build up sufficient reserves to cover several years of benefits and expenses to withstand possible unexpected future circumstances. Mr. Speaker, despite the encouraging short to medium term outlook on the fund, what is clearly evident from the latest actuarial review is that Bermuda, like most of the developed world, is faced with challenges associated with the growth of an aging population. This increase in our seniors will obviously place a greater strain on the country's pension system. And therefore, the difficult choices that we will have to make, Mr. Speaker, the government will take those on. And as we all know, there's only 3 adjustments that can be made to pensions: increase contributions, reduce benefits, or increase retirement age. Or you can, and for the public pensions, that's basically it. And there will have to be a combination of all. But what we will ensure to do is continue to make sure, and I had this confirmed yesterday, that the work that the team is doing is to ensure that as time goes on, we continue to make sure that our pensioners will not fall behind the rates of inflation, as that is something that is critically important, Mr. Speaker. So in closing, I wish to again assure members, and more importantly, current and future pensioners, that the government recognizes the challenges they face. We will take the appropriate action and decisive steps to enhance the benefits paid by the contributory pension fund to ensure that the fund has the ongoing ability to pay for such benefits in the future. And Mr. Speaker, there will be a debate today on this order. And I know that we will hear a lot, but I want to make sure that the persons listening on the radio remember the difference. 55 months, the party opposite increased seniors' pensions once. One time, Mr. Speaker, and this, Mr. Speaker, is the 5th increase that this PLP government is giving to our seniors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. Is there any other member? Opposition Leader, would you like to make a contribution at this time?
Thank you, Mr.
Go
Speaker.
right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I smiled because Mr. Speaker, we in this side recognize that there is a need to support our seniors during these difficult times, and so the 4.1% we'll have our blessings. But the issue, Mr. Speaker, that we have is the overall big picture of the fund. And as the Minister of Finance said, he must have known where I was going to go, because he tried to circumvent me and put blocks up during my whole presentation. But anyway, I'm going to continue what I had planned, because I think he knows me by now. Mr. Speaker, he spoke about not being able, the OBA had not given an increase for 55 months while we're in government. Mr. Speaker, we did not give the increase because the PLP government was in place since 1998. In 2013, Mr. Speaker, in 2013, Mr. Speaker, a SAGE report was produced. And Mr. Speaker, that report indicated a shortfall of $2 billion, Mr. Speaker. And
Point of
so,
order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of
Speaker,
Point of
order.
order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of
The
order.
honorable member is misleading the House. The SAGE report had absolutely nothing to do with the Contributory Pensions Fund. The Contributory Pensions Fund is a separate fund from the Consolidated Fund, and the Contributory Pensions Fund is administered under separate laws and separate acts. And the honorable member would know that we table actual reports in this honorable House every 3 years as required by law on that particular act. So if he's referring to anything of the Contributory Pension Fund, which we are discussing, he should keep his comments referring to that, Mr. Speaker, and not to other matters.
Thank you. Just be guided by the.
Thank you,
remarks
Mr. Speaker.
of the
Guess what?
leader.
The Contributory Pension Fund is not much better, Mr. Speaker. Quite frankly, I have a life work report in front of me, Mr. Speaker. And in 2000, the fund had a total liability of $5.5 billion, and the total contributions and the value of the fund was $1.97 billion. If you take the 1.9 billion from the 5.5 billion in liability, how much do you have, Mr. Speaker? A deficit of almost $3 billion. Mr.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, the facts
we'll
speak for
take-
themselves. I'll be happy to
take your point
table
of
this
order.
report, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
Table it.
yes, you can table.
It was
but
already
take your
tabled to
point
the
of order.
House. Mr. Speaker, point of order, if I
Take your
may.
point- Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member is misleading the House because what he is trying to say is that the deficit inside the fund is the difference between the total future liabilities and the current assets. And why I said inside of my statement is that that is the actuarial basis. However, that assumes that no one will pay into the fund ever. So to follow that assumption is today everyone stopped contributing to social insurance. That is how that reality is, but that is not the reality of the way that these things work. And that is the reason why I was very careful in my statements, because as the honorable member said, I know where he was going to try to go. They make the same point all the time, but it's important that we are being frank and forthright and explaining the full picture to persons rather than using these numbers to make a point which is not reflected.
Thank you. Opposition leader?
So, Mr. Speaker, again, I stand by the actuarial report, and it's indisputable that there is a liability projected for future benefits of $5.5 billion. That's irrefutable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I said, and the Minister of Finance did say that, if we do not do anything in regards to closing the gap, Mr. Speaker, we may run out of funds for our young people by 2044. And he acknowledged that. And he said that he was going to take steps to change it. And he, in fact, indicated that, Mr. Speaker, that the Pension Reform Committee was working with the Ministry of Finance and other people, including Life Work, which is the actuaries who did the last report. And my question to them is, when will these reports be finalized and be brought to the House with the recommendations? Mr. Speaker, you answered it vaguely. We are looking for a finite date, Mr. Speaker, because we were promised a date for Fairmont, Southampton, Mr. Speaker, and that was supposed to be June when the bulldozers were going to be hitting the ground. But, Mr. Speaker, to date, we have received no movement in that space, Mr. Speaker. So why should we believe him that this actuarial review in regards to pension commission reform will be imminent? So what does imminent mean, Mr. Speaker? So now we're going to say more now. So then,
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
We'll take the
The
point of
honorable
order.
member is misleading the House. I did not say imminent. I said in the next session. I did not say imminent. We will come in September. We will have a throne speech. We will come back. We will have a throne speech session. And when we have budget session, you will have legislation. We will fix the issue. I said next session. I did not say imminent, Mr. Speaker.
Continue on. Just be mindful of the comment.
Mr. Speaker, the next session is just 3-4 months away. And so in my mind, that is imminent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's continue. Mr. Speaker, I'm not just concerned, Mr. Speaker. The concern has also been showcased by 2 Auditor Generals. And if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read what our Auditor Generals have said.
Go ahead.
And this is from the late Heather Jacobs Matthews. Due to serious deficiencies in the accounting records of the contributory pension fund and in the system of internal controls, I was not able to satisfy myself that all assets, liabilities, revenues, expenses of the contributory pension fund had been reflected. Nor was I able to satisfy myself that recorded transactions represented valid transactions of the contributory pension fund for that year end. As a result, I was unable to determine whether adjustments were required in respect to recorded and unrecorded assets, recorded or unrecorded liabilities, and the components making up the statement of financial position and the statements of changes in the net asset values for the benefits and changes. That was under the late Heather Jacobs Matthews. Mr. Speaker, moving forward in 2023, the current Auditor General, Ms. Heather Thomas, wrote, and I quote, "It is inexcusable that the CPF has not produced financial statements since 2012, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about such an important pension fund, and we have not received financial statements for the pension fund since 2012. Government," she goes on to say, "government should take immediate steps to ensure that the Accountant General has the financial resources to recruit staff to bring the CPF financial statements up to date."
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
To not bring.
Hold on one sec, ma'am. Point of order.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, so that the honorable member doesn't mislead the House and the people of the country, I think if he's going to quote from former Auditor Generals, he should give the dates in which these quotes were made so everybody knows what period we're talking about.
Continue. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, for the current one, Ms. Jacobs was 2023, earlier this year. They said not to bring financial statements up to date should not be an option. Mr. Speaker, this is abominable, Mr. Speaker, because it shows a lack of proper governance. And so it's fine to hand out the benefits and keep paying, but we should be responsible and make sure, Mr. Speaker, that the pension plan is managed effectively and that the shortfalls are managed. And quite frankly, since 2000, and I'll go back to 98, quite frankly, the PLP government is just providing a pension review reform, Mr. Speaker. And I suppose, Mr. Speaker, we're not the government, as my colleague said. We were government for 4 years, Mr. Speaker, since 1998. Mr. Speaker, what have they done in the 25 years, Mr. Speaker? They have been handing out money and providing poor governance and poor oversight in regards to the management of the contributory pension fund, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will you ask the Deputy Premier to stop chirping, please?
Member,
He should be leading, should be showing example for the country as a Deputy Premier, but his behavior is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker.
member, you said it enough times. Next time you get outside to say it, see?
Oh,
Thank you.
yes, I like that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Talk to me, Mr. Opposition Leader.
So, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, as I said when I opened my comments, it's fine to make these payments and we support the payments, but at the end of the day, we have a colossal problem which the Premier finally recognizes and it's beginning.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of
to do
order.
something
Point
to
of order,
address-
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, point of order.
I will not allow this honorable member to mislead the House. We know it was stated in budget statements. We understand what has been stated by finance ministers since 2017, both former and current, on this issue, the work that has been undertaken. But I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, while he continues to mislead the House, I find it particularly interesting that he mentioned the fact that the Auditor General said that there has been no auditor's reports in 2012 and conveniently missed out the fact who was elected to the government in 2012 and the time of the break that was there. But don't worry, when I respond, I will make sure he gets his answers. But it is not correct, Mr. Speaker, that we have finally realized this has been work that has been undertaken for some time to get it right.
Thank you. Member, just be mindful of the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's interesting that he makes those comments, but quite frankly, the same challenge, he cannot stand here today and say that the contributory pension funds financial statements are current. He cannot stand here today and say that, Mr. Speaker. So the challenge still persists under the PLP government. So with those brief remarks, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I accept the challenges, but I think we as a country, based on what the Premier is saying, is finally beginning to do something about remedying the deficiencies and the poor management of our contributory pension fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? MP Adams, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. I wanted to speak briefly on this order, partly because I recognize that you don't have to be a senior or close to being a senior to care about how our seniors are being treated. You see, not only do I have friends and family members that are of that age, but I find myself surrounded by a bunch of them in my caucus meetings as well. But in all seriousness, the Progressive Labor Party, as the Premier alluded to, without question, reveres our seniors. The seniors that have laid the foundation, who have worked hard and sacrificed for this country. We often say that Bermuda punches above its weight, and a large part of that is because of the standard our seniors have set. And so, Mr. Speaker, every single member of the Progressive Labor Party can attest to the fact that increasing social insurance benefits by the rate of inflation is amongst our highest priorities. We will continue to manage the public purse prudently so that we have the capacity to keep the promise that we made to the electorate in 2017. You see, Mr. Speaker, this government has to make difficult decisions every single day. But I can assure the listening public that increasing pensions that would provide relief and lessen the financial burdens for many of our seniors was not a difficult decision at all. I am proud to stand by and with a government that understands that. Now, Mr. Speaker, I say that because, as the Premier alluded to or said, our seniors have not forgotten how they were treated under the former administration. We all remember when asking for a pension increase to maintain their standard of living, our seniors were told that money doesn't grow on trees. But did you notice that the premier at that time chose to say nothing? Leaving the rest of us to believe that his silence meant consent. That, Mr. Speaker, is the OBA. Mr. Speaker, that then is completely different from the ideals of the Progressive Labor Party, which amended legislation to provide better standards in our care homes, increased future care prescription drug benefits. We introduced interest-free loans up to $15,000 for families that need to modify their homes. We continue to increase our stock of affordable houses. And today, we are here to increase the pensions yet again. Mr. Speaker, that is the PLP. Mr. Speaker, notice we did not come here with excuses. We are here with results. We are keeping our promise. Seniors in this country will see a 4.1% increase in their pensions. I've already heard from many seniors within my constituency, and they've expressed that they are grateful for the increase. They are appreciative that this government is honoring its commitment. Mr. Speaker, I want to also say that I really hope that the members of the OBA refrain from devaluing and disrespecting the work of civil servants by questioning the competency calculating the rate of inflation. And the reason I mention this is because quite often, I've heard members of the opposition question the rate of inflation that is provided by those within the Department of Statistics. And so I'm glad I got a chance to speak early in the order, because if that is their playbook, then I hope they go in a different direction, because it is in poor taste, poor form, and a total lack of respect for the men and women within that department that take pride in their work and performance. It is certainly within their character. And so, Mr. Speaker, if that is in their playbook, and that's why I got up early, because I'm trying to say, if it is in their playbook, I suggest they come with actual facts and cite their sources.
Let the conversation flow this way.
We got them riled up today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll switch gears for a second and just say that this government also recognizes the importance and the need for reform of our social insurance system and the public sector pension plan. We have not shunned away from the fact that they are underfunded, but we also have not shunned away from taking the responsibility of fixing it. We are not only proud of the fact that we are supporting the seniors of today by helping them maintain their standard of living, but we also need to begin the journey of supporting or providing the seniors of tomorrow to enjoy that same support. Mr. Speaker, I, for one, am pleased to know that the work on finalizing the revision to the public pension system is well advanced, and I look forward to hearing more from the Premier on the path forward. Mr. Speaker, as part of that reform, I also look forward to the government addressing a significant concern many of my constituents have expressed, and that is regarding the social insurance contributions. We quite rightly said that we were not elected to maintain the status quo. And the fact that in 2023, an entry-level employee is contributing the same as the CEO is outdated and, quite frankly, unfair. Social insurance contributions based on a percentage of income, as the Premier said, is not a unique concept. This happens all around the world. And we take pride in soon putting forth an initiative that will allow many of our workers to increase their take-home pay while our pension fund is sustainable for decades to come. And so finally, Mr. Speaker, the rising cost of living and the cost of doing business affects us all in different ways. And I get that at the end of the day, the people of the country do not care about the reasons behind the rising cost. They don't care who is to blame. The only thing they really care about is what is the government doing about it. So, to those, I say that we have reduced payroll taxes for the majority of the workers and businesses in this country. We've increased funding for scholarships. We've eliminated land tax for nursing homes and charities. We've ensured that businesses in the retail, restaurant, and personal care sectors do not have to pay duty for their capital upgrades. We've revised the sugar tax so that many of those items that used to be subject to the tax are no longer subject to it. We've eliminated duty on the school uniforms, all school uniforms. We've introduced a mortgage guarantee program where all public officers right now can transfer their mortgage and get a reduced mortgage rate. We've increased child daycare allowance. We've implemented one of the highest minimum wages in the world. We've eliminated duty on essential goods. And we are now keeping our promise yet again and increasing pension benefits for our seniors. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'll end by simply saying that we have a record of improving our fiscal performance and prudently managing and providing relief. We've managed that balance. And as I said last time, when you hear the Premier and Minister of Finance say that we've outperformed financial expectations, it is reasonable to take that as a sign that there is more relief to come. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Adams. Premier, we've got 2 minutes of that time. Do you want to make that call now, or we want to use up to 2 minutes? Premier?
No, noting that I have a funeral, Mr. Speaker, but I move that this honorable House do not adjourn until 2 p.m. for lunch.
Thank you. Any objections to that? There are none. The House now stands adjourned until 2 p.m.
I asked him.
They're going to be waving them. It is the only place they're going to be able to wave them. Because they're going to be holding the job. Microphone's on. Microphone's on.